ndị be anyị ekene m unu ọzọ n'ụbọchị nke taa. Daalụ niile na ụmụ ife ụmụchukwu ka unu si na-esonyere anyị n'ife anyị na-eme n'elu akwụkwọ n'ụbọchị nke taa. Anyị jere na-akpọkwu ka arabụ ndị na-agba mbọ maka ọdịmma ndị Igbo, maka nnwere onwe nke ndị Igbo, maka nnwere onwe nke Maazị Nnamdi Kanu. Anyị si n'ụnụ ga-adị ka echi na echi ada agwụ ọgwụ. Otu anyị kwuru na-akọ ya dịrị ise dịka o si dị, anyị eje gbapụ ya ọsọ igosi unu ma ndị otu anyị na-ajụ anyị ka ezi update from DW News Africa. So n'oge ugbu anyị wetara unu some of the updates unu ga ya bụ ife unu ga-esi ya drop one comment unu. Prime Minister Maazị Simon Ekpa live with Ambazonia fighter on DW News Africa. Stay tuned. Bambo make sure and comment after the news. There is a lot of collaboration going on. But kanapo ikamon kanapo nukuni geya bife. Uni gesia ya una drop or comment you. Alright, over to you, sir.
The Constitution of Cameroon is functioning within the apparatus of a democracy. And of course, basic elements or to let's say 1 or 2% of facets of democracy can be seen, as far as perhaps few private media, social media, and individuals are able sometimes to give their voice and say what they feel to say. Daring to say and having the ability to say is one thing, and not having the freedom after saying the thing is another thing. We shouldn't confuse the two. Having a law in place is one thing, and for those in power, not respecting the laws as far as implementation is concerned is another thing. So democracy in Cameroon it's a complete failure as far as respecting the engagement by the parties concerned, which is those governing and those who are to be governed is concerned. It's a failure. However,
yes, also
let me support what Fabrice is saying.
Again, before we move to Mr. Tapang, Ivor, and Mr. Simon, they have also been discussing before you come in. We're actually talking about lockdowns and school boycotts. When you see that happening in the Anglophone regions of Cameroon, is that democracy? Before we go back to them,
I would like to precise something here that be it the Ambazonian movement or the Biafran movement or the Cameroon government, I see a lot of loopholes as far as their strategies in leadership is concerned. Loopholes in the sense that there is no organization, institution so independent to confirm the statistics that those who claim are taking decisions on behalf of people can independently say yes, lockdown is successful because the people have by this method proven to accept this decision. That is what we call a colossal decision. In a complex society like Northwest and Southwest, where people have diverse views from different backgrounds, have different daily problems, you cannot authoritatively sit in the different contexts, different environment, different experience over time and say, of course, people are comfortable just by group discussions. Let me land. Just be patient to listen to me, sir. I'll be listening to you patiently too. I'm just learning. Yeah. So I just want to say, you can't sit and say that everyone is comfortable when you have not proven this by any means which is universally accepted, or which can be generally proven, or which is scientifically proven, you know, or even if you want to go by our tradition, which deity will say that, yes, these guys, what they are saying or what they are doing is correct. So it is relative. It varies from person to person. And that's why it does not have any generally accepted mechanism. Yes, democracy depends on.
There are other measures you can use to. There are other measures you can use to measure the success.
You know, it is quite absurd, you know, to sit here and listen to people, you know, drawing some kind of similarity or drawing some kind of references from a freedom fighting movement, and then you want to bring in democracy into it. It is quite absurd. We are talking about state that has gotten independent, and the independent state. We're not talking about a freedom fighting movement.
Yeah. Correct.
It's completely different.
Yeah.
And so you don't talk about democracy into it. What we are talking about, how can we delegitimize the government that are oppressing our people within our land. So it is not about democracy. It is when we have gotten our independence, we are going to practice the true democracy that will be drawn from our normal traditional rule models and whatever we want to do it to make it work for us. So
how do you give power to the people? How do you give power to the people?
It is not about, you don't give power to the people during a freedom fighting. You are fighting war.
You're fighting for freedom.
You cannot give power to the people. You need to make sure you control the territory that the enemies and the oppressors are using to kill your people. First of all, control it by any means possible.
Let me come in. Let me come in. The mere fact that we're talking about Ambazonia exists as a nation dating back to 1961, known as the former British Southern Cameroons. I want to go into the nitty-gritties, but Mr. Simon is absolutely right. If we're talking about functional states recognized by the United Nations, non-functional states that have not been recognized but seeking for their self-determination should not even be considered in the debate of a democracy, because we are freedom fighters. We are fighting to have freedom, which is a fundamental tenet of democracy. We are fighting to liberate ourselves, which means we are not even functioning within the so-called democracy. But let's look at it at African level, in general, across Africa. Is there democracy? Yes, there is a gradual movement towards democracy. People are increasingly speaking out. We've seen it in the case of Niger. There is mass mobilization at an African level. Diaspora contributions are also counting in. People are increasingly having mobile phones to counteract, to talk against the government, alternative media. This is exactly where we are driving to. And this is the Africa we want to see. However, we don't support any Western nation that wants to impose its sanctions on us for us to embrace their own ideologies. It would not work that way. That is where we keep having a conflict in democracy in Africa. But let's keep away all these quasi-states and non-functional and non-recognizable states by the United Nations.
Let me come in here to state that Ambazonia, the word, it was Southern Cameroons, and Ambazonia came after the 1980s. In the 1960s,
no, Ambazonia is just a name. It's just an appellation. It's just like Nigeria. Maybe
Ambazonia didn't exist before 1980.
Ambazonia is just a name. We can call it any name. We can call it Mimimefo. We can call it Ivo.
But
Ambazonia's name by nature is the former British Southern Cameroons. Let me use the word former British Southern Cameroons.
Yeah, that was just to clarify the viewers that Ambazonia came later and that before was British Southern Cameroons.
I agree.
Mr. Tabang Ivo, so the question now is, we want power to the people. We want democracy in Africa. We want things to change. We don't want the dictatorship in Africa.
I agree.
How best can we go about it? Making sure that the rights, the basic rights of citizens on the continent, the basic rights of people in our respective countries are being respected.
I have a parsimonial solution to this. Very simple. And I believe everyone on this panel will agree with me. The mere fact that we youths are sitting here to talk about democracy is a plus. However, we African youths are interested in using the social media for fashion, showbiz, Gucci, Versace, and all of those. When is the last time you saw African youths without an election phase coming up, without an electoral fraud happening? When is the last time you saw African youths talking about democracy, talking about elections, planning ahead? We never plan ahead. We only wait for when elections come. Then you see a non-social media candidate who has been preparing for the last 5 years or 7 years of his mandate, prop up with some clientelism, buying votes. He becomes the president through a legitimate election. I will explain why. Mr. Paul Biya of Cameroon won the elections legitimately and landslide victory in 2011. Tinubu also won the elections. He could be contested, but he won. Guess what? You cannot sit on the social media waiting for elections to come thinking that, oh, your social media candidate is going to be the president. It will not work that way. Votes don't come through social media. They come from the ground. You have to start preparing for political changes now. You don't need to wait 7 years to come after brandishing your Facebook pictures and the rest, engaging in showbiz and gossip news and the rest without any political participatory approach. You need to start planning now. Simon Ekpa, for example, is planning now for the Biafra he wants to see in future. It's not suddenly that he'll wake up and say, there is Biafra today. No, it's a long process. He has gone through struggles.
But
the youth must be aware that politics shape our future. And for us to have a bright future,
Mr. Tanko, let me disagree with you on one thing you said, that Bola Tinubu won the election. You don't just sit here and begin to make comments on other countries that you know nothing about. You don't know how the process of the election happened in 2023. So you can't sit here and say in Nigeria, Bola Tinubu won the election. He never won the election. He never won the election. Why would he sit here as a freedom fighter telling us how somebody won the election in Nigeria?
He's the president.
He can be a president. That is why we are seated here today to talk about.
Mr. Simon, there is one solution to this. We can go on to disagree and debate whether who won the election. But if we don't prepare now, we will have the same thing. If we don't prepare now, we will keep complaining.
Okay, so let me come
please, Mimi, it is my turn. You called me. And please,
gentlemen, let me come in now.
Bola Tinubu did not win the election. Bola Tinubu,
Mr. Simon, let me come in now to just ask you a question.
Go ahead.
How do we give power to the people? Because you are saying that today we are talking democracy. We want people to have the voice. We want things to work in favor of the people, and that you are ready to do what it takes for African youth to get there. How are you going about it, and what are you doing to make sure that power gets to the young people and that their rights are not being violated in the process?
Thank you very much. I'm gonna give you a very straight answer to that. You know, I like this. Please, nobody should interrupt me because this is a very good one. The way we are going to make Africa work and bring true democracy, either the democracy of using our own modus of democracy, like our own cultural and traditional norms, is by losing up, disintegrating Africa along tribal lines. That is number one step. Africa needs to be disintegrated along tribal lines so that you are going to have a nation with like-minded people, without anybody having a beef, without anybody not understanding your language, without anybody coming to the table where he is eating rice and you are eating a pounded yam, or that you don't understand what he's talking about when he is discussing with his brother. So we need to disintegrate Africa. This is what Europeans did. And they know the secret to the success of their democracy. Because once you have a divergent, if you have a diversity that is a very dangerous one, it can never work. Because everybody will want to, he wants something he wants for his people to happen. And it may be going the other way, conflicting the interest of the other. So for us to move forward in Africa, we need to begin to understand what did the Europeans do? What did the Europeans do to come to where they are today? They disintegrated along tribal lines. That's why in Scandinavia today, they have different languages. As smaller as they are independent. The Soviet Union fell and everybody disintegrated because they could not stand the heat of the diversity. When the diversity becomes so dangerous, it is what is happening in Africa today. So for us to move forward, please, for us to move forward, like I said, we start from, I have been saying it, that Biafra is going to be the beginning of true democracy in Africa. And I repeat, I'm standing here to say it again, because in Biafra, once Biafra is actualized and becoming an independent state, we are going to have a loosed up confederation of Biafra, where every tribe, if I will use the word tribe, or every ethnic group that finds himself in Biafra will have independence and will have autonomy. They are going to have their own law.
Yes, Simon, let me ask you another question here.
That is the only way and the only time democracy.
Okay, Mr. Simon, are you saying that all the Igbo people should think alike?
I disagree.
No. It is not about everybody, Igbo people thinking alike. No, but we have one common thing. We have one thing in common: progress, progressive, success.
Can I speak?
Okay? The issue now is, how do we attain progress? It becomes the issue to be debated. It becomes the issue to be debated within the government. Okay?
Yes, we have to go around.
These policies are moving clearly. These policies
has to talk a little bit before we come to.
Can you just stop interrupting, please? Every Igbo man wants to have a good road. Every Igbo man wants to go to a good school. Every Igbo man wants a good hospital. Every Igbo man wants a good life. So how do you bring it, to the people? It becomes the issue of debate. It becomes the politics we are going to play. So it is not about everybody we have like mind. Our like mind is that we are progressive and we want to progress. So whatever that is going to bring on the table to make us progress and attain that thing we want is what everybody want to follow. And you don't have any now in Nigeria today. The reason why we are saying let us have autonomy in Nigeria, they say no, because Igbo people want they want good road, they want good hospital, they want international airport. We travel a lot. White people in the north don't travel. They don't go anywhere. If they want to travel, they go to Saudi Arabia. So there is nothing in common. They are not progressive. They are nomadic. Why we are progressive? We want to live in good house. They don't live in good house. They live in the bushes. How do you progress with such kind of diversity? It is absurd. Some people want school. The other people in the north don't want to school. They don't want to study. We have what we call quota system in Nigeria, where somebody in the south will get 200 cutoff marks to study law. He cannot get admission into the university. While somebody in the north will get 80, and he will be admitted. So these are the problems.
I don't think we should tribalize this debate.
Yes,
let's look at it from an African perspective. Let's not tribalize this debate.
Simon, I would disagree here with you. No, I would have to disagree with you, because we also have citizens in the far north region of Cameroon. And in Cameroon, the far north region is one of the, I should say, the places in the country where illiteracy rate is very high. Development is almost inexistent. There are bad roads. Access to potable water is not even possible. And then we have Boko Haram also in the far north region. So because of this situation, you cannot say that it is existing because the people do not want development. It's because of bad governance. And that is what.
And who are the governors? And who are those governing?
The government, those in
Please,
power.
can we stop tribalizing the debates? Let's look at it from the African perspective. There are other countries. There are other countries we can talk about.
Mr. Fabrice is also part of this panel. Gentlemen, Mr. Fabrice is also part of this panel, and Mr. Ivor talked earlier about the need for people to come together, knowing that if they want a particular person to lead the country, they should make sure that it happened. It shouldn't be happening on social media. It should not be happening on Facebook. It should not be happening on Twitter and so on and so forth. Fabrice is a politician, a grassroots politician in Cameroon. He's been advocating for change. He's a political analyst. He's been doing a lot on the ground. Mr. Fabrice, I am sending this question to you to find out from you, what should politicians in Africa do to make sure that this actually happens? That leadership doesn't only end at the level of social media.
He who is courageous enough should stay back in his country and fight the enemy within. If you die in the process, that is the price to pay as a freedom fighter. And that's the message I want to send to anyone who is a freedom fighter or who calls himself a freedom fighter, whether you come from Cameroon, from South Sudan, from Angola, from Mozambique, or wherever in the continent. I have dared to stay in Cameroon, in Yaoundé, since the crisis started. And of course, Mr. Tampa knows my political party, Popular Action Party of Justice Aya Paul Abine, and the persecution we have gone through, the prisons, the intimidations, and the difficult times we have gone through. It is not about imposing your ideas on the mind and giving people your doctrine as the absolute truth. This conversation we are having is followed by men of integrity, and dignity followers and people who admire one or any of us on this platform. And the attitude we put to the debate is very important. I just beseech, if one is given his few minutes to argue, let's argue constructively and just deliver our ideas and pass it on. We do not, no one holds the magic wand. No one holds the absolute truth as to how best things should be done in any context. Our ideas are just relative and it just have few decades to live. But the sustainability of these ideas depend on how we put it on ground, who we were, track record of our activities and our personalities. I want to emphasize that democracy is important for every society, depending on the leadership, depending on the heart of the leader himself or herself, depending on the institution or the group or the party that carries out this leadership in any context. In Cameroon, our context is peculiar, particular, complex, and difficult. If you want to win the heart of the people, you cannot be in London, in Washington, in Toronto, in Berlin, in Paris for 5, 6, 7, 8 years without understanding exactly what people are going through in Boya, in Muyuka, in Bamenda, in Yaoundé, in Douala, in Maroua, or in, let's say, Calabar, in Nigeria, where I visited 2 years ago, or in Oyo, or in Oka, in Anambra, where I visited 1 year ago, and then you have absolute declaration about these things. Connecting to your people, irrespective of the circumstances, is important. Lobbying for an umbrella coverage within your network is important. And sometimes as leaders, what you preach and stand on today can come to trap you tomorrow because you did not calculate very well and measure your words, but you thought that you could be the hero of your time to just make declarations. I am giving my opinion. I am just giving my opinion. At the end, you will say yourself, I'm giving my opinion. Just allow me to learn.
How to do politics.
Let me ask you a question, Mr.
Not about
Fabrice.
democracy, not about politics. You are teaching how to
Yes,
connect.
Mr. Fabrice, I wanted to find out from you. I wanted to find out from Mr. Fabrice's, Mr. Tapang, Ivor, and Mr. Simon. And in the diaspora, they are calling for lockdown. From the diaspora, they are calling for change. They are calling for change as far as the form of the state is concerned in their respective countries. They want autonomy, they want independence. What do you think about what do you think about all of this? What their ideals are? What do you think about this? What do you think about the activities from abroad?
Mimimefo, I respect you very much, and I respect every other one on the panel. I respect everyone's opinion. I am not prejudicial to anybody's opinion. I just pray that when each person is given his few minutes to talk, let the person talk to the end. If I'm talking too much, maybe the moderator should remind me of that. But it's always very important.
Just go ahead and talk.
Yeah, it's important that you are the one to moderate, because if I don't go to the end of my idea, I get interrupted by another panel. It's not very good for me. It's not a healthy conversation.
I'm not responding. I just asked a question.
Yeah, everything evolves around politics. No one can say that he's doing activism without politics or fighting for freedom without politics. That is politics in manifestation. We are talking about politics because democracy is an aspect of politics. Democracy is a form of governance, and government is politics. So we are talking about politics. And I do not agree with the issues of lockdown unless there is an organization within Africa that measures whether these lockdowns are having positive or negative impact on the people concerned. In as much as there is no organization or a barometer to measure these, I am not sure that the people are comfortable with lockdowns. because the humanitarian, economic, and social impact of this is on the vulnerable women, children, girls who on these days of lockdown do not have accessibility to basic necessities. A woman who is pregnant and supposed to give birth to that particular day of lockdown may die in their house or have complications which might be a psychological trauma for the rest of her life, or some kind of business people who will have urgencies and to catch up they might not because these lockdowns are on the days. There are thousand strategies to advocate for change, for autonomy, for whatever agenda you have, without necessarily making the impact to be more, the percentage of the negative impact to be more on the people. Unless, I insist, you have a barometer to say that your people are comfortable with what you are saying. And of course, if we were to take the contemporary issues making headline in African news, we will say that the people of Niger will prefer a coup because the former leader was making some ties that did not suit the people. And the people came in their normas, in their different stadiums to acclaim such a kind of popular action might be an approval of someone's agenda. But without such, if it is just about the Facebook conversations, about the WhatsApp discussions, that is no measure.
Yes,
that is no measure. So I disapprove of any control from the diaspora.
Mr. Fabrice, can you hear me? We're about to conclude on this discussion. I want to ask a final question because you talked about diaspora and people who are agitating from the diaspora and demanding for change in their respective countries. I should say that the diaspora has been playing a lot of role, very, very instrumental role, because many people who are sometimes back home cannot do the things that people are in the diaspora are capable of doing. For instance, fighting against right violations, calling for press freedom, and fighting against press censorship. I, for instance, I'm a victim of press censorship in Cameroon, and I've done.
Dalo nne no kono si wene sare no bosinke taa achi na chukwu kabe magana elu nine ne adike chineche ada agwagwu ya be ifu na nugo ife the Biafran Prime Minister here the Twitter session of Biafran Prime Minister and some questions and answer ya be ife bogochukasi ụmụ Chineke anya ka ọ na-azakwafa n'elu akwụkwọ a ịnụrụ ya ifegasi some ajụjụ dị iche iche ụmụnna anyị na-ajụ ya ana efu ka o si wee na-asị ya then nke dịka ibe ya bụ ka efi nwere ike ikwu gbasịta maka ka ya bife si aga. Ọ bụ na ife anyị na-eme na dunu mma ka barụ ka share and comment ya your own opinion on the commission below. Daalụ ndị na-enu ụmụ Chineke ka o si na-esere anyị ya na-eme n'ilu akwụkwọ. This is Eastern News 24 bebe si na-wetara unu nnukwu ozi a.